Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this video lesson. We're going to be talking about the repetition structure, continue talking about it in the form of a project. What I'd like to do is to draw a hollow square on the screen based on some user input. So if I were to switch over here to my notes program or notepad program, I'm going to draw something like this. In this case, let's say that the user entered 5. So you'll see that I have 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll see that inside of this square is hollow, and only the top and the last row have solid stars to give you the perimeter of the square. So how are you going to do something like this? Well, let me describe what I'm going to do via pseudocode. Pseudocode is false code or fake code. What that means is that we're using a little bit of programming language and a little bit of English to describe what we're going to do. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I have to draw row 1, and then row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, if the user enters the number 5. So I'm going to need a row counter. Within each given row, I'm going to draw this column, and then this column, and then this column, so forth and so on. So therefore, I'm going to need a column counter to draw every single column. And then I need to know what the user number is, because I don't know how big the square is going to be. Maybe they're going to enter 5 now, but 10 tomorrow. And then I'll create an output variable of type string, which is going to be empty at first. I'm going to send all of this stuff to the string, and then I'll output that to a label on a form, say for example. So when I get the user input, I use the word read. When I write out information to a label, say for example, I use the word write. So read means I'm going to get the user input, and then in the calculation section, what I'm thinking is this. I have to go through every single row. So first I have to draw this row. Then I have to draw this row, and this row, and this row, so forth and so on. Well, if I am at row 1, like this is suggesting, if the row counter is 1, then we draw the first line of the square, and then we go to the next line. Well, drawing the first line means you're drawing a bunch of asterisks, or a bunch of stars. All right. Now, if the row counter is 2, then that means you're drawing a star first, then all the spaces, and then that last star. And that's what you see over here. You draw the initial star for the first column, you draw the middle spaces, and then you draw the ending star. Now, if you're at the very end, over here, say for example, then you're just simply drawing that row of stars, and that's what this represents. If the counter is equal to user number, then draw the last line of the hollow star. Finally, we're going to send this to some label, so we just simply put the word write. So this is pseudocode, and it describes in a semi-English programming-like language what we're going to do so that anybody can understand this. You don't have to have the person be a computer scientist to understand the steps that we are taking. So now what we do have to have is a computer science major take this and then translate it to whatever language. And in this case, we're going to use Visual Basic, and that's what it looks like over here. So I have this form that's going to obtain the input from the user, and then we're going to generate the square down here. So for example, if I run this, and if I have the number 5, say for example, so there's my square. If I have the number 8, say for example, okay, there's my square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns. All right, how do we do this? Well, I'm taking that pseudocode and I'm just transferring it here to Visual Basic. So I have my declarations as I described over here, my declarations of all my variables. Then I'm going to get the user input. So over here it just says read user num. Well, in Visual Basic that means take whatever the value is from the text box, convert it into a whole number, and then place it into the variable user num. And then I have my calculation section. Well, the first thing I'm supposed to do is cycle through every row. Well, how do I cycle through every row? Well, I take the row counter and I start off at row 1, and then I'm going to go all the way up to the user number. So if the user enters the number 5, we're going to be taking a look from row number 1 all the way up to row number 5. Now within that repetition structure, if the row counter currently is equal to 1, then we draw the first line of the square. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to draw the first line of the square. How do I do that? Well, I just simply have a for statement that draws a star for the first column, and then the second column, and the third column, and so forth and so on. So what that's going to do is it's going to draw this column, then this one. And we keep on doing that until we've reached the user number, which is why you see that over here in this code, as long as we are less than the user number, we're going to keep on cycling through this to draw a star for every single column for that given row. Finally, once we've done that, we're going to go to the beginning of the next line. That's what that VB new line code is. It goes to the beginning of the next line. Okay, so we finished that if statement with a nested for statement inside of this for statement. So now we go back out, and now row counter is 2, and then 3, 4. Say, for example, if the user enters 5. All right, get rid of that message. All right, so over here with this else if statement, this is going to consider every single row from row 2 all the way up to, but not including, the user number. So what do we have to do? We have to draw that initial star on the first column, and that's what this thing does. Then we have to use a for statement to draw a bunch of spaces in between. So in other words, over here, we got to draw all these spaces, 1, 2, 3, so forth and so on. All right, once we've drawn those spaces, then we finally draw that last star of the row, and we go to the beginning of the next line. So we're going to draw this star over here, and then we go to the beginning of the next line. So the cursor is blinking over here at the next row. So this is going to happen in between every time we go from row 2, 3, 4. We're going to execute this else if statement. Then we have this last else if statement. If the row counter is actually equal to the user number, then that means to draw the last line, and that's this last line of stars. So what we'll do is we'll simply say draw the first star for the first column, and then the second column, and the third column, and so forth and so on. So all we're doing is concatenating an asterisk to the output until we've completed that entire row. Once we're finished with that, then we're going to go to the beginning of the next line. Once you've done that, and this for loop has executed however many times the user wants to execute this, then we're going to send the output to the text property of a label, and that's why when I run the program, no matter what integer I enter, it will display the appropriate number of rows and also the appropriate level of columns within that row. All right, so this is Professor Robert Solis. Hope this video lesson was helpful. You guys have a good day. We'll see you next time.